Padres, that's been maybe the more surprising one to me with how they've dropped off. But
yeah, Schulte, I don't know what's going on over there, but
gosh,
trying to lock in.
I mean, the Cardinals clearly knew that they couldn't win with that guy, but whatever.
Okay, let's calm down. We don't need to relitigate 3-year-old
Marmol's
history.
fine. That's what I'm trying to say. Get off of Marmol's back.
Marmol is manager of the year contender with the way that the Cardinals. I mean, he is. He is. I have seen it written by prominent. I've seen it written by prominent people in the last few days that he's the favorite at this point for manager of the year, which is of course an award that the BBWAA writers vote on. I actually had a vote a number of years ago in that, but I would just make an argument that is an award. It's kind of like when we talk about in the NFL, the Chiefs, Andy Reid never wins a coach of the year. Well, why is that? Well, his teams are always expected to do well, and they always do well. It's sort of the same idea, I think, with manager of the year, and every voter can take it his or her own way and give their own interpretation. But generally speaking, the way that it often goes is like, all right, what was this team supposed to do? And by how much did they exceed those expectations? Well, the Cardinals were expected to be, 3, 4, 5 games below 500. Right now, they're sitting at a season-high water mark of 9 games above it. They make the playoffs with a team that, I mean, literally you can use as Oliver Marmol's favor and as his argument for manager of the year worthiness. You can look and say, well, what did they do in the offseason? What did John Mozeliak and company muster up to turn this thing from an 83-win team to potentially vaulting them into the playoffs? They really must have made some good changes. Well, no, they just got rid of Paul Goldschmidt, got rid of Lance Lynn, got rid of Kyle Gibson, just all the guys that they were supposed to lean on to be good last year. They're like, we can't afford to pay these guys to bring them back or meet their expectations for what a salary would look like. And so we're going to go ahead and not make offers to any of them. We're going to try our best to trade away their Hall of Fame third baseman Nolan Arenado. We're going to fail at doing that. And then we're going to basically do nothing until Phil Maton's still kicking around in spring, and we're going to go ahead and add him for a couple $1 million. He's been great, by the way.
Yeah.
But like that would be your argument if you're Oli Marmol. It's took a team that won 83 games, you subtracted notable names from it, you added nothing new outside of Phil Maton, and you have turned things into a well-oiled machine as the Cardinals stand here today, sitting in a postseason spot at just beyond the halfway mark of the 2025 season. That would be my argument, is like they were expected to be 77-win team, and right now they're pacing to be more like 88, 89.
Yeah, because you could make a case that, I mean, you wouldn't this year because the team's doing well. But, like, you could make a case that, well, the front office did just about everything they could to drag this team down a little bit. To just say, hey, we're going to play the folks that we have in our system. Maybe they're great, maybe they're not, but there could be all kinds of ranges of outcomes there when it comes to that. So the front office not doing diddly squat for the most part is almost instrumental to how it might go into the season with the guys that are actually tasked with winning the games. And to this point, they've done it to the tune of a .553 win percentage.
I think most people would say the Cardinals are winning in spite of their offseason.
Yeah.
Another way to frame it, if you're John Mozeliak, would be, no, we just knew that some of these players hadn't really gotten a chance to blossom, and this was a year that we wanted to, once and for all, find out what some of them were made of and roll with some of our internal in-house options so as not to set another course for trading away the next Randy Arozarena or Adolis Garcia, etc. We wanted to give a look to the guys, one last real long look to as many of these guys as we can before we usher in a bit of a transition for the team and its leadership. And as a result of that, we just didn't want to do anything. We didn't want to continue to slap Flex Seal on this hole in our boat and just find a way to say, look, if we sink, we sink, and the next guy's going to have something to clean up, and he'll at least know what he's working with. But if we don't sink, I can at least kind of have my little victory lap as John Mozeliak and say, see, I told you we had talent in this organization. We didn't need to go out there and spend money. Kind of convenient because ownership wasn't going to spend it anyway. So there was a confluence of those ideas that is currently benefiting, whatever the narrative of the front office and ownership would be. No, we didn't cheap out. We just said we got enough talent here in-house to be able to pull it off. And, hey, we did tell you in spring we were going to be pretty good. The degree to which they believed that doesn't really matter. I think they had hoped that it would be true, but it's turned out to be pretty true. And I think internally they had a pretty good idea for what that was going to be, or at least what they hoped that it would be. But frankly, they were never going to win the offseason. They were going to try to just roll out what they had, and if they looked good, then they come out smelling like a rose. And I'm not saying it's happened yet because we've still got another 80 or so games of baseball to play. But so far, they're coming out smelling like a rose. It looks like things are going according to the best laid version of whatever plans they had.
Still kind of surprised that no one has angrily called or texted in after Brenden said that Oli Marmol should be manager of the year.
I don't even know why. That shouldn't even be controversial. Name me another manager.
You're right, though. Yeah, you're right.
Name me another NL manager that is just 100% more deserving. You could make a case for plenty of guys, I'm sure. But I don't know that you could make a stronger case for a manager that has got his team exceeding those public expectations by more than what Oliver Marmol is doing. By the way, with less, because the expectations were not there. Sort of the gift in disguise of, hey, we're going to take some of the pressure off of us, and it's going to allow us to play our best baseball. That has worked so far. To whatever you might have thought of the Cardinals offseason, they were never going to win the narrative, but they're winning baseball games.
I mean, the only other argument would be just, the managers that are shepherding the teams that are just the best in baseball at the moment, or has the best record. If that's the reason why, they would be winning the award or being nominated for the award for a different reason. So put up Dave Roberts, put up, Rob Thompson, guys like that.
Let's debate that. Would you argue that Dave Roberts going 53-32, 624 win percentage, better than the Cardinals, better than the Cardinals by about 6 games right now in the standings, has done a better job than Oliver Marmol? Okay, I think we look at the resources that a guy would be dealing with. Now, to Roberts' defense, they have dealt with a ton of pitching injuries.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily saying, well, it's Dave Roberts' fault because of the way that he has managed the pitching staff. Now, that would sound kind of ludicrous, but I do think it is fair to credit Oliver Marmol and his coaching staff for carving out and plotting out a plan that has allowed for their veteran, otherwise known as older, starting pitchers to be able to stay healthy to the degree that they have this year. Cardinals have not put a pitcher on the injured list. Tomorrow's July the 1st. That's unheard of. And I think for as much as I'm not going to, like I said, you can't pit it on Roberts. I think the style of the Dodgers pitchers is often something that just deal with this every year. They've got guys that throw hard, they throw stuff, they throw spin, and their elbows break. But man, the Cardinals coaching staff has kept their guys healthy with their very specific plan for modified 6-man rotations, for days of rest, for Kyle Leahy not pitching the entire weekend against Cleveland because he was on pace for 100 innings as a reliever. They are doing things that's deserving of praise. In addition to having fewer resources, they're doing things that I think are actually tangibly aiding the Cardinals in being where they are. That staff and the manager leading it.
Because again, if the Cardinals do have, let's say, 1 or 2 starting pitching injuries, that derails them a lot more than it has derailed the Dodgers to this point, because the Dodgers have an embarrassment of riches in that department when it comes to that.
And the Cardinals do not, as a result of, you could say the front office and just their ability to develop those types of names throughout the years. I think they're currently on a track to where they're going to be a lot better in that area. When you think about some of the names that are rising right now in the system, Takoa Roby is applying himself at AAA and looking like somebody that could be on the way. Quinn Matthews, we're still seeing Tink Hence try to get back from injury, but there are some names at AA like Eshawn Henderson, Hansel Rincon. I mean, they've got a lot of names that some people may not have even heard of at this point that are on the way, that are pitching really, really well and developing before our eyes. I would credit more of Chaim Bloom, Rob Cerfolio, and his staff to that. The fact that the leap is coming now for a lot of those guys after the Cardinals have made a little bit of a change to their minor league infrastructure and the way that they develop talent. But that being said, you would have come into this year, and if you take 2 of the starters out of the rotation, and I get it, half of them have been very mediocre, kind of number 4, number 5 starters, but you take them away, and you're relying on McGreevy, maybe you're relying on Steven Matz, where he wasn't able to pitch in that bullpen role if he's in the rotation, which is okay, but the Dodgers have had basically 5-6 starting pitching injuries this year. If you talk about 2, you do not have another guy in AAA that I think you're confident that you could bring him up, not stunt his development, and have a major league readiness about him in the org for the Cardinals. They're not quite there yet. It's going to be a different story in 2026, but right now it has been necessary to keep the starters healthy the way that they have, and it's paying dividends for sure.